Welcome everyone. And thanks for being here. You are in the AI Agent Metrics Framework and a webinar workshop for today. So over the next 80 minutes, we're really going to focus on two things. First, we're going to give you a simple framework for measuring whether your AI agents are actually paying off. And second, and this is the fun part, you're going to actually get to use GitKraken Insights and this framework live on real data inside GitKraken Insights Sandbox. So it's not a watch us click, it's a get your hands on the keyboard. So we're going to get right into it. So just a couple quick things, few logistics before we start. So first, you will have access to your own sandbox. So you'll have live GitKraken Insights data inside your sandbox. We're going to give you the link here in just a few minutes so you can actually log in and follow along as we walk through some real world use cases. Second, questions, please make this interactive. So as we go, if you have any questions at all, please drop them right into the chat and we'll try and knock those out as we go. So we'll be monitoring that as well. And then third, just for the flow for today, how things are going to work. First, we're going to run through some slides and we're going to look at some data from some recent research that we've done, some really enlightening insights. So we're going to share those with you. Then we're going to actually present 3 or 4 real world use cases, and you're going to follow along inside your own sandbox as we actually go through and work our way through those different use cases. And Jeff will drive those. So let's go ahead and do a quick intro of who is GitKraken, and then we're going to introduce who our presenters are today. So one of the things that you're going to notice that is going to be fundamentally different about GitKraken from any other provider solution in this space is GitKraken is truly a developer experience platform. That is part of our DNA. That is where we come from. And really no other solution in this space can say that. So on the top in the purple, just to give you a really quick overview of our platform, you can see all of our different developer tools. Some of you, if you're familiar with GitKraken, maybe you've even used GitKraken Desktop or GitLens for VS Code or in your IDEs. We also have MCP tools and CLI tools as well. What we're going to be focusing on today is on the bottom of this circle in green. That's GitKraken Insights. These are our developer insights, and they give you visibility into things like DORA metrics, code quality, and really what we're going to be focusing on today, AI impact and how that measures up to business impact. So that's what we're going to be going over today. Just a quick highlight of who GitKraken is. So we are used and loved by millions of developers across the globe in over 100,000 organizations. So you can see we've got organizations that use our tools from every shape and size, from very large enterprise companies all the way down to small startups. So that's a little bit about who we are. And so what we're going to be focusing on today is GitKraken Insights. And this is the platform that you're actually going to be using today. It's the performance platform for AI-powered engineering teams. It's one place that pulls together how all of your developers and agents are working together, and whether your code bases, repositories are actually ready for agentic development. So that's what we're going to be digging into, as well as what's the ROI of all of this? That is one of the questions that's certainly top of mind for many engineering leaders that we talk to. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. All right, let's do some quick intros so you know who you're learning from. So I'll go first. My name is Jeremy Castile. I'm the VP of Developer Research here at GitKraken. I've been at GitKraken for almost 4 years now. So my team is primarily responsible for working with engineering leaders and software teams, studying how teams work best and bringing a lot of that information back to our product team, our engineering team, so that we can actually build those capabilities into our products. It's all about improving the developer experience. Jeff, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Jeff Schinella, Senior Product Director here. I've been with GitKraken for a long time, worked on a lot of different aspects and products that we focused on. Latest is GitKraken Insights, and I'm excited to show you all about that. And then
And and my name is Anastasia Zamyshlyaeva. I'm VP Engineering here at GitKraken. I'm going through the same pain points as you are going, trying to make our teams more using AI and actually seeing the outcomes. So I'll be bringing also that perspective of really people who are practicing, who are practicing this, and happy to be here.
awesome. Cool. So, just really quickly. So, first of all, thank you so much for everyone for joining us today. Many of you actually filled out an open-ended question as you were registering for this webinar. It was really interesting to see what you were hoping to learn and the kind of things that are top of mind for you. So, we heard things like, hey, we want to learn how to tie the use of AI to business impact and value. Certainly top of mind. Others said we want to help the team evaluate the value of our AI usage. Many of you are looking to how to actually effectively measure the ROI of AI and AI agents, and certainly how to measure the AI impact comparative to the cost. Cost is becoming such a top of mind topic right now, so we're going to be diving into that. And also learn how to effectively gauge the reliability and trustworthiness of agentic coding. And so I want to reassure you. First of all, thank you so much for submitting these comments. We are going to absolutely cover every single one of these today through this workshop. So it's really exciting to see kind of what you all were hoping to learn and that it aligns really well with what we're going to cover today. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it. So, first of all, I want to strip the whole topic down to really its core. And right now, most engineering leaders are being asked a couple of questions. They really come from usually it's someone who is holding the budget when it comes to investing in AI software tools. The first one is, are we getting value from AI? Now, this wasn't the question a year ago or 2 years ago. The question a lot of times 2 years ago was, how fast can we ramp up adoption of these AI coding tools because we don't want to be left behind. Now in 2026, the questions have fundamentally shifted. It's, are we getting value from AI? And the second one is, how much value are we getting from AI? So they sound like simple questions, and they are, but the honest truth is that most teams will actually tell you, hey, we actually struggle with how to answer either one of these questions with real data that we can really stand behind. So let's take a look at kind of like what we mean, and we'll show you some of the data is actually pretty clear. So, as I mentioned, we recently ran a pretty comprehensive survey. So, we talked to over 550 engineering leaders and developers. So, one of the things that came out, which, and maybe this is obvious, but just to overstate the obvious here, adoption is over. That was last year's problem and the year before that problem. What we saw in our survey results was that 96.4% of software teams have already adopted AI coding tools. So adoption is that battle has been won. But one of the most interesting things when we asked developers and engineering leaders if they felt more productive, 84% of software developers and engineering leaders said they feel more productive, and 43% said they feel much more productive. Only 5% said they feel slower. And I get that. I mean, I think there's a reality to that. But think about what that means when nearly every team has adopted AI and most people are feeling faster. It stops being a differentiator of just being able to adopt the tools and feel like we're going faster. But I want to pause there. Jeff, Stacia, from your perspective, what do these numbers mean to you? What are you guys seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in quick. Like the conversations I've had recently are, how can we pivot away from the token burn phase into the, okay, how should we be using AI so that we're not burning as many tokens? Costs are definitely going up. That's part of the driver, I think. And yeah, it's definitely moving away depending on where you are in the journey from, hey, let's make sure everybody is at least getting their hands into this and using it to, all right, let's make sure we're starting to use it in an efficient way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in our team, we were going through the phase when we said that you have unlimited tokens. The key thing is to drive the behavior, and we did, and we also see super positive results of that transformation in terms of velocity. I think we'll be deep diving further into this, but now my biggest question and something that does let me sleep during night when we'll have to switch from the seed-based pricing to usage-based pricing, what I'm going
Hmm.
to do. So going through the optimization of the costs, which models, which tools are working best for what kind of workloads, this is the top of mind and something that we are trying to optimize in our teams.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think, and I think that's what a lot of folks on the call today are probably struggling with as well. I can almost feel the anxiety, of that. We know that switch is coming. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and move to the next one here. So this was another really interesting finding. So starting from the kind of basis of almost every software team has adopted these tools, everyone's feeling more productive. Almost 40% of teams have absolutely no way to measure it at all. And of the teams that do, it's very limited. So this one is just really surprising to me because I think it's and maybe it's a kind of leading lagging sort of thing, but the conviction of these tools are helping us go faster and so adopt is way out of ahead of the evidence to show that we can actually prove the ROI. Only 21% of folks said they actually have any specific real metric that they actually track. So is really, I think there's a disconnect here, and you could call it the believe but can't prove gap. And I think it's really the single biggest motivated group in the whole survey. Lots of teams feel that value, but very few can actually demonstrate it. So again, I mean, maybe Jeff, Stacia, from your perspective, Jeff, what are you hearing when you're out talking with customers? Are they feeling this? Are they seeing this?
Yeah, I definitely hear it a lot, right? Like everybody's looking for data on what they're, spending their money on, right? How is this worth our cost? Are we seeing return on this investment? Are we understanding, how this is playing out? Because that bill comes due. At the same time, you want to get into that measurement. You can't improve what you can't measure. So there's also an
Hmm.
improvement side, I think. So all of that is really helpful when you get that type of visibility into the workflows and how AI is being utilized.
Yeah, and I know Stacia, we're going to get into this. That's really the point of
Yeah.
the workshop
Yeah.
today. But you kind of went through this.
I went through this and we started with surveys asking developers, do you feel more productive? And
Hmm.
we got similar answers on your previous slide that,
Hmm.
yeah, they felt that they're productive. And then I'm coming to my CFO and the board and saying that my team really feels more productive. And they're like, okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? And how I could quantify maybe at that time, just based on the feelings, I would say that maybe my team become 15, 25% more productive. But then when we switch to really measuring the impact and improved velocity, not decreased quality, and
Hmm.
by the way, hint, lines of code or a number of PRs is not the right metrics to optimize for in the era of AI. But
Hmm.
when we started really measuring the outcomes, then this is where I saw really this major boost in the growth. In this case, we start talking about 2.5x growth on velocity and productivity for the team just within
Wow,
3 months.
that's incredible. That's incredible.
Just constantly looking at the data, learning from it, learning from the patterns of the behavior in the team, and trying to optimize our environments and like keep building, measuring, learning. So
Hmm.
with this cycle, this is the result that we were able to get with agentic development and
That's right.
measurements.
Yeah, now everyone's going, how do I do that? So that's what we're going to get into. That's really incredible. Thanks, Stacia. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and launch our first poll. Would love to kind of hear from you guys on this one. So we'll have 3 or 4 polls that we'll run throughout. So first poll, how does your organization measure AI's impact today? First choice is we don't measure it at all. Second is gut feel and anecdotes. Third is a few individual metrics. And fourth is structured DORA dashboards and ROI. All right, we are seeing some live poll results rolling in here. Okay, so really interesting so far. So it looks like number one is a few individual metrics. Okay, that's surprising. Stacia, does that line up with kind of like what you would anticipate? Or does anything kind of jump out to you here, or Jeff as well?
No, I think this is pretty much aligned with the research that we were doing. I think this is aligned with the numbers across the industry.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, really encouraging to see kind of the lowest one is we don't measure at all. So that's great. It sounds like many of you are actually starting down this path, which is amazing. So cool. All right, let's go ahead and keep going. So from this research, again, like something that really popped out to us. Now, the sort of the where GitKraken is going and where our products are going and our users are going. One of the things we wanted to uncover in the research was how agentic are teams. And then we wanted to correlate that with how productive they feel and how much they're measuring. So one of the things that actually came out that was really surprising, and this would really change how you think about measurement. It's not just hygiene. It's really the thing that separates the teams that are getting real value from the teams that are still just kind of guessing. When we group developers by how autonomously they use AI from assistive, and assistive would be like code complete, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe using some of the tools that would help you with that, all the way up to fully agent native. Now, this means maybe you're running agents for longer, deeper sessions. You could even be running multiple agents simultaneously, letting them really do a lot of the work for you. So what we saw in the data was super interesting. Every single outcome improves as you climb up that curve. So feeling much more productive more than doubles from 28% to 62% went from assistive users to agent native users. And then the share of people tracking real metrics actually triples. And so that's just super, super interesting data. Would love Jeff or Stacia, if you guys have thoughts on this. As you move up that agent native curve, you start feeling even more productive. What are some of the thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear that a bunch, right? The amount of code that can be created and shipped is like exponentially grown across teams, right? And that feels really good and exciting. You can constantly have agents running and working on tasks, and you're generating this and pushing it to the repos at an alarming or amazing rate, really. Um,
Mhm.
that's I think that's the sentiment that's driving it. And we see this in other studies and in our study here too. Just at some point, you get to understand, like it's just highlighting where the bottleneck is. It's not in code generation anymore. It's moved it down the line. It's in either testing or it's in review or it's in some of these other areas downstream. So that I believe really hinders your sentiment of how productive you are with the actual
Mhm.
outcomes or outputs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later.
Yeah, absolutely. And Stacia, if you layer on here, it's kind of another cut of the same data. So we can feel much more productive in kind of the green teal there, goes from 28 at assistive to 44 at emerging to agent native is 62%. And then tracking right along with that is tracking specific metrics. So again, as you move up that agentic, kind of like journey, you see that tracking specific metrics goes up, and orgs that don't have any visibility at all comes down inversely. So, Stacia, what are your thoughts on this data?
This pretty much aligns with the story that I shared with our org when it was more in AI assistive mode. We saw people felt more productive, but I didn't have the data to prove it. And then we start deliberately measuring what's the behavior of the agents. Are agents being used on regular basis? Is it becoming a part of the regular workflow for developers? This is the first thing. And at that point, I didn't care much about the outcomes, about the outputs. I really wanted to make sure that team is going through the change of switching their workflow. This is one of the biggest change management that we are going through in the last 20 years or even more. Then after that, when I saw that our team members were very comfortable using AI, we wanted to go more to the autonomous mode. When developers are more agents orchestrators and not writing code by themselves, but giving this bigger chunks of the work that agents are able to deliver within a few hours, like fully working, tested, documented, based on the specs that they grade with a human. And like when we really address that workflow, and again, we were using the data to see what is working, what is not working, what are the patterns that we could adopt across the team. After that, we were able to see this 2.5x in productivity. And I see some of the questions in chat about how do you measure productivity? For us, again, as I mentioned, lines of codes or number of PRs is not good metrics because you can easily tell your AI agent, please create as many PRs as you can and make it as verbose as possible. So in this case, we are talking about we are associating with each piece of work that is delivered to production, that is merged into main with an effort. And effort in this case, again, not lines of code. It could be really huge PR, which is just very simpler factoring with renaming of a function of method. And we'll consider this as low effort work. And there could be just 2 lines of code with very complex race condition that requires understanding the architecture, lots of troubleshooting, that will be getting much higher score. So we are aggregating all of this effort that have been shipped, not just that have been created, not like the open PRs or closed PRs, but PRs and commits that have been shipped into production. And this is what we are measuring in terms of the velocity. And of course, as a part of it, you can't trade your performance of the delivery with lower quality, lower security. So that's why having this guardrail metrics is super important as we're going through this journey. So it's a combination of metrics that we need to track, starting with behavioral, then going how system is changing, and putting the guardrail metrics that you don't want to have negative side effects from these changes.
Wow, that's awesome, Stacia. I think that would be really enlightening for most teams to go beyond sort of the surface level, but understanding like the complexity, the effort, and still maintaining code quality. So that's awesome. Great. Thank you. All right. So, this completely reframes the conversation that we've been hearing about, kind of in the Twitter sphere. The question was never really whether to measure. Now it's really about how to measure exactly what you were just talking about, Stacia. It's not about lines of codes. It's not about like number of PRs. And that's a trap that a lot of times it's very easy that we want to fall into. We jump straight to outcomes. Did our cycle time improve? Did we ship more? And those are great things. We want to be able to have visibility into those. But they don't tell the whole story, and we don't understand whether AI was actually contributing or causing those changes. Or was it a number of other things that potentially factored into that? So to actually know, we need to understand the leading indicators first. So you really need 3 layers, and that's the framework that we're going to be getting into. And then just as before we get into kind of the hands-on part here. All right, so let's look at kind of the framework. This is the framework. It's behavior, environment, outcomes. It's a whole thing on one slide. You can see the three layers. Behavior, it's really, are your people actually using AI, and how deeply? Environment, this is about, are your repositories, is your code base even ready for agents to run inside of them? And the outcomes, that's really what we all want, is what actually came out of the other end in terms of, the engineering, engineering terms, and in dollars. And we'll walk through all of these in this order, and we'll see kind of which signals come out, and we'll check all of these three parts of the framework here. Okay, so let's quickly go through each one. Behavior. So this is layer one, and really the key insight is that it splits into kind of two parts here. First is the adoption, and that's the breadth. Are people using AI regularly, daily, across the day, with real prompt depth and volume? Then on the other side is autonomy, and that's the depth. Are they actually handing real work to agents, long-lasting agentic sessions, lots of tool calls, autonomous pull requests? And this is the distinction really in everything. And that's one that a lot of teams really miss if they're only looking at, just simple AI usage. And you'll see plenty of teams with very high adoption, but low autonomy. And that's kind of like you're still in the experimentation, dabbling phase, but not really getting into the transformation phase. You'll see exactly what we're talking about on the leaderboard here in just a minute. Next is environment. And so really this is the second layer of the framework. And this is one that often gets skipped, but is really super important. Once you know how people are using AI, you really have to ask, are your repositories, is your code base ready for agentic development? Things like branch protection, CI/CD, observability, governance. And this is the kind of thing that you really want to remember, which is that, and we know we've heard this, but AI really accelerates what's already there. So if you have kind of a mess with not a lot of guardrails, that's all going to be amplified. But the good news here is this is really usually the fastest and cheapest way to get some wins quickly. And we'll get into some of that. And then the third layer is outcomes. And this is the one that's really tempting to start with. And on the engineering side, it's merged PRs, direct commits, reviews, cycle time, change volume, and critically attribution. How much of all of the change in our engineering organization is actually coming from AI? And then you translate all of that into business value. So hours saved, dollar value, and the CapEx versus OpEx split. That's really what the finance team and your CFO are going to be asking about. So the whole point is, those outcome numbers only mean something once you've got behavior and environment underneath them. And so sort of the order really matters here. And so, but why does the order matter? Well, first, it's because that behavior and environment are really leading indicators. They tell you what's coming. Outcome is really a lagging indicator, and it tells you what already happened. When you start immediately with outcomes, you miss kind of the attribution part of it. You're not quite sure what was causing the changes, whether you're speeding up or slowing down. It's genuinely very difficult to say. But read the leading indicators first, and suddenly the outcome story is defensible, similar to kind of like what Stacia was saying. So Stacia, let's pull you in here kind of from your perspective on this framework, behavior, environment, outcomes. What's your angle here? Is this sort of like the journey that your team now has kind of come into?
Yes, that's right. And I think it's super critical to go from the left to the right. You can't just walk into the room and say that, hey, everyone, starting from tomorrow, I'm expecting everyone to be 2 or 3 times more productive. It will be not working like that. So starting with the behavioral change, there will be a learning curve. There will be resistance that people could be going through when they're going through the next and next rounds of AI adoption. Um, so we need to invest into that. And at this point in time, I was very clear with the team that your outcomes, your performance most likely will drop. And this is absolutely okay. Just don't worry about that. So starting with behavioral aspect, then going to the environments, because sometimes you will have developers um, who are able to do all this agentic pet projects outside of work. And then when they come back to work, they say that, sorry, our code base is legacy, our code base is so old, agents can't work here. So getting and making sure that your environment is agents ready. So previously it was like we were trying to improve the developer experience. Now we are trying to improve agent experience, of course, in addition to the dev experience. So this is something that will help, first of all, have spending less tokens on doing this stuff, because there'll be like more clear guardrails for the agents how to execute. They will know what the architecture is about, what the principles that they should be following, what's the design that is used here. But it's also then when you go more to the agentic world, letting agents be adventurous in terms of that they're coming back to you with a code, not when like they felt that I've done my work, but they're actually testing, finding issues, fixing issues, and doing this couple of rounds. And then when they're confident that this is what we agreed on from the very beginning as a part of the specs, that only at that time they're coming back to you. But at the same time, you also want to have the protections and guardrails so agents will be not going rogue in your production environment. So yeah, this will be the second element that we were optimizing, and then as a result, yeah, we want to see the outcomes and learning from the team what is working, what is not working, to get higher and higher level of outcomes.
Yeah, that's great. The piece about making sure that you have the guardrails in your environment set up right so that you can comfortably sort of turn some of these agents loose, and then that they know to do, not just come back with the very first sort of result, but to kind of do those additional things. So having your environment set up so that they can do that, that's great. Okay, cool. Jeff, I don't know if there's anything you want to add here. I know you talk to a ton of customers and you see them kind of like working through, the different stages here, but yeah.
Yeah, just to maybe commentary on that is, every organization's in a different stage, right? So you might value behavior over outcomes early in that journey, right? You want to get them involved, developers involved, and learning and adjusting to different workflows, different methods of shipping code and delivering code. So it's a spectrum, and I'll just kind of highlight that it's not universal for everybody. You might want to be leaning one way or another in any of these areas that we're talking about.
Yeah, great call out. Okay, cool. Let's keep rocking and rolling. So next live poll question, we can go ahead and launch that one. And this one's super interesting. Which layer of the framework that we just went over is your biggest blind spot right now? Is it behavior, environment, outcomes, or honestly, all three? Let's give folks a second here to have some engagement here. Oh, none on environment yet. So folks feel pretty confident there. That's interesting. And I guess
But
maybe that
there is
go ahead.
also honestly all three, so it could be that
That's true.
it is
Okay.
rolled up.
Yes, that's a good call out. Yeah. Yep. Okay, good. Awesome. All right. Well, good news. You're in the right place. We're gonna show you how to get visibility and into all of this and how to improve all of these. So really, really exciting stuff there. All right, let's go ahead and keep rolling. So really just kind of like, we've gone through the framework. That was the theory part of it. So now let's get into the fun part where we're going to get into the real data. So quick heads up. So 3 layers before hands-on scenarios. And that's really because outcomes, we want to split it into 2 passes, which first is kind of the tools. AI tools, AI models. You're going to see that here in just a second. And then second is the results, right? In terms of kind of the dollars and the savings. So we'll go behavior, then environment, then outcomes. So for each one, we'll have a quick setup for the scenario, and then Jeff is going to drive the demo for those. Okay, so now this is the fun part. Here is the way to access your sandbox. So go to, and I think we can drop this probably in the chat as well. But this is the URL. Whoops, let me go back one slide to go to. It is demo.getkraken.dev. That is where you will find the sandbox. Once you're there, you'll need to input an access code. And of course, LD 2026 for Lead Dev 2026. So we'll give everyone a minute or two to thank you, Jennifer. The links are now in the webinar chat, so you can go there and click there. So while everyone is getting familiar and getting into that link, just a quick kind of like fun question that I wanted to ask. So depending on, I mean, obviously for us right now, the World Cup is going on, depending on when you're watching this, maybe not, but please drop in the chat. Let us know, who are you rooting for the World Cup? Who is your team? And Jeff and Stacia, I would love to ask you, who is your team? So Jeff, maybe let's start with you. What team are you going for in the World Cup?
I'm kind of rooting for Mexico right now. They're doing a
Nice.
really good job. And
Okay.
like to see them come out ahead.
Go Mexico. That's awesome. Stacia?
And just like every match that I see, I'm rooting for this team. I'm rooting for this team, and I'm pretty impressed by lots of people just having all this chance. It's amazing. For me, I think this is three teams.
Okay.
It's France, Spain, and Portugal.
Okay. Awesome. So you're kind of a fan of multiple teams. I love it. That's awesome. Okay, and we're seeing some pop into the chat now. That is amazing. I will say my favorite team is the fans. That has been the most amazing part, getting to see all the fans and how much they love watching their teams. I love that part of it. So that's been really fun. So many games. It's been just a really, really fun thing that's been going on. So awesome. Thank you guys for popping that in. So now hopefully everyone has access. If you don't, let us know, pop it into the chat. And no matter what, don't worry about it if you can't get in for whatever reason, if we're having technical issues. Hopefully not. But the reality is we're going to show you everything. Jeff's going to be demoing, so you will be able to follow along even if you're not in and able to click yourself. Hopefully you are, but that is the setup. All right, let's go ahead and move on. All right, so first scenario. So here's the situation. Picture yourself as an engineering manager. 6 weeks ago, you rolled out Claude Code, Cursor, Copilot to 60 developers. Leadership approved the spend, but it wasn't cheap. And now the question lands on you. Is anyone actually using these tools? And more importantly, who's using it well? So not who just turned it on, but who genuinely has been changing how they work. That's the difference between adoption and autonomy. So it's the first thing that we're going to actually jump into. So a couple things to watch for, some headlines around adoption, autonomy, output. We're going to drill into power users versus regular users. You'll be able to contrast emerging devs with the same tools with very different behaviors. And the opportunity call out. How do you actually coach and move folks up? So with that, Jeff, let's go ahead and have you start sharing the demo.
Yeah, I'm going to spin over here to the demo environment. Hopefully you're seeing exactly what I'm seeing or something like it. And for a quick orientation, there's a variety of filters at the top. We're going to be focused on one of our core platform teams here in the demo when we talk about these ideas and the behaviors and the metrics around them. You can modify the data by tier for your power user. I'll get into what that is, tool, model, all of those things. And we're going to be in the by developer navigation area for this particular segment. So If you're there, great. If not, you can make your way there. And what I'd like to start with is, we're talking about answering that question, right? Who's using it? Who's using it well? What we're looking at here in our developer view for our agent leaderboard, we bubble up some headline metrics that can help give you that answer. One at an organization level, but here at this team level, right? So what's the average adoption for this particular team, right? How many of the developers have made AI assisted code changes or are using AI on a regular basis every day? These are those aspects, dimensions that Jeremy was mentioning before. How frequently, how often are we using AI? We roll that up. How deeply is AI being engaged with, right? In parallel sessions, number of tool calls. There's a lot more that goes on here when we're talking about the autonomy score. Then we also pair that with the output, which is really around, are those adoption events driving good downstream effects. And this output score, I'll get into the details in a minute, but that's based off of various things like the shipping code or commits to production, like Stacia was saying, PRs, both reviews and merges, as well as the direct commits to the repository. And then lastly, we indicate who are the champions, right? You want to know who on the team is using AI to a really high degree, both in terms of the adoption and the autonomy scores. And we'll bubble that up, the percentage of those heavy people who are leaned into AI from your organization. There's a variety of things that go into these scores around, the heuristics for each one. We can provide those, in a resource. But if you ever do question, right, not only this bubble up affect the aggregation, we can go down and we can drill in and start looking at other details, right? The members of this team, I can see their individual tiers, right? Those are the actual engineers who are the champions. Contrast them against some of the other adopters who are somewhere else on that spectrum, whether they're exploring or trying it out or kind of using it consistently, but maybe not as high as some of their power users. And even identify, some emerging users, maybe users who are just starting out, who haven't given it a chance, or possibly even are on PTO. You can get that context here in this list of developers. You get the score breakdown for each one. And what's really helpful, is we'll dig into one of these power users. I can drill in and understand some of the data behind those scores. So I have that context to help myself as a dev leader, see, oh, here's where those activity streams came from. Here's where, there were some gaps. And of the entire consumption and usage for a specific developer or engineer, I can understand what that estimated spend would be if we were paying those API costs, those things that worry Stacia at night, and I'm sure a lot of other people. Gives us the breakdown by model and by tier, and that telemetry across, maybe some of the richer metadata that you can see. So in this example with Claude code use, you get all of those prompts per day, number of sessions per day, to really guide that, is it being used and is it being used well question that, Jeremy's talked about.
Yeah, one
All of
of the
this
things
is,
that
oh, go
really
ahead.
jumps out to me on, if you scroll just down a little bit, Jeff, is
Yeah.
the kind of P50 and P90. So being able to see how, every single, how I compare, how every developer on the team compares to kind of the rest of their team, I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah, that's really helpful for internal benchmarking. It's something that comes up a lot. Is just, where can we where can we place this, in terms of how the rest of the organization is doing? And that's a great insight to call. Some of the other ones that really stand out a lot as well, are, any sub-agent calls per day or tools per prompt. All of that's super useful. And when you want to talk about outcomes and outputs, we can look at one of these power users, right? We have, an average of 9.81 or 9.59. These are interest numbers on their own, but we'll give you the estimated value of like the dollars per output. So it's a sliding scale. So even if you're looking at developers that maybe are not contributing as much, you can see that maybe we're getting more efficient return on output, right? The things that are being shipped to production, comparatively, something like it's might not be shipping as many things, but we're spending less money per, output score for someone who's a regular user here who's costing only $130 per output score.
I'd
So
like to chime in.
yeah,
Traditionally, metrics for developers, lots of people were burned by not proper measure, and that's why I was a little bit worried to roll this out for engineers. But now we're saying that every engineer is becoming a manager, and you need to orchestrate your agents efficiently. So when we share this to the developers, there's a way just to share the very specific number for myself compared to the percentiles, but we just gave this for everyone within our team, and actually it had a positive cultural impact. There was lots of curiosity in terms of, okay, oh, it seems that this guy is doing something interesting that I can learn from, and people were just starting to reach out instead of having this tops bottom kind of movement, how we can do this kind of things. People were just reaching out to their peers or people from other teams and, hey, can you show me how you're orchestrating your agents? What are the different things that you're doing that are helping you to have boost? So I felt that it was a good morale and positive shift on the team, despite this traditional fear of metrics and introducing metrics for engineering organizations.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's such an important call out. And I'll just double click a little bit on that, Stacia, because we work with so many engineering teams. So it's really important, I think, for folks to understand this is one of the things that fundamentally is different about GitKraken versus any other metrics, legacy SEI solution provider out there. GitKraken is truly, has developer experience kind of at the core of what we do. That's who we are. It's in our DNA. And it really comes through. No other kind of like solution provider gives you this level of information. Not only are we going to help the engineering leader improve the outcomes for their teams, we can also help improve the experience for your developers and how they're managing agents. And we have seen that as customers start using this, we see them go, wow, we want all of our developers to have access in some way to some of this information because it's going to help improve their experience. It's going to help improve how they're working with agents. So fundamentally different, just a really important call out for sure. So
yeah, huge sort of shift culturally, I think, because there's that big brother mentality. But from my experience and even talking with other devs, seeing their score, it's a curiosity thing, right? You can have that position of, oh, well, how do I get from my score from 40 to 90 or from 40 to 60 or whatever that next step is, can really be a motivator or,
yeah, absolutely. And it's so different from, the credibility too. I mean, coming from GitKraken, which is a developer, experience tool. And so I think developers will go, oh yeah, it makes sense. Okay, I want to be able to use that and get, to get better. Versus potentially something else that might feel more like surveillance. And this is absolutely not that. So
yeah. That's good calls outs. One last thing to touch on here before I'll pass it back. We're talking about the data that makes up those numbers, the data that makes up that adoption score. We have the system metrics, that output score we were talking about. You can get that on an individual basis as well as a team basis, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you can drive in here and understand, well, how is that cycle time trending? How are those output, those commits, those pull requests opened and merged? Trending over time? Are we seeing an increase or a decrease since we last started using AI? And I think maybe Jeremy, you called it out before. Understanding the depth or the details about each of these, you can easily open one of them and figure out like, oh, there was a 500 pull requests, but were they really all small, tiny changes, or were they low effort? Part of the system gives you that visibility, that flexibility to understand, what not only how many things were done, but a heuristic around was this contributed with AI? Was this something that was focused on bug fixes or refactors or enhancements? Where are that investments going? And the average effort involved. Were these tiny, tiny changes over a short period of time, or were they one big monolithic thing? You can get that visibility to vet and guide yourself in making those assessments.
yeah, absolutely. That is something that we have heard from many customers where it's like being able to have access to that data layer behind all of these metrics is really powerful.
Yep. So yeah, that's I think that's helpful, and I think we're going to go to the next one. So I'll pass that back to you.
Awesome. Cool. You guys got my slides?
Yep.
Good. Let's go ahead. Okay, so what surprised you? Drop that in the chat about the kind of like what you saw, maybe the distribution, power users versus emerging users. Do you have this level of visibility today? Would it help your team to have this level of visibility? What were some of the things that jumped out at you? Drop those in the chat. And then we also have a try at home. So after the workshop is over, here's an activity. You'll get a recording, so you'll have all the slides here, and you can go through, identify, who are the top 3 power users, who are folks that are adopting, have high adoption, but maybe low on the autonomy scale. And then third would be looking at, what's great usage but potentially costly. So maybe high token spend but few merged PRs. What would that mean? What does that look like? So to take a home activity, do on your own time, but that's a really cool one to go ahead and check out. All right, so let's get into the next scenario. Now we're moving down the framework layer. So we're going to get into environment. So we looked at adoption and autonomy, but now we want to get into, is our code base, is our environment ready for agentic development? So you found your power users, but one is pushing thousands of dollars of agent work straight to main, no review. Every score was multiplied by a company AI readiness number. So the question flips is, are your repos ready? And if they're not ready, are you measuring productivity? How do you measure how fast the mess piles up? So let's actually go in and get a view of our teams, our repositories, and see if we can actually get an assessment around, is our code base ready for agentic development? Things to watch for. So we're going to switch over to the team view. We'll open kind of like basic versus not ready. We'll look at what actions potentially we could take, maybe enable branch protection, add CI. We'll tie it back to our readiness multiplier. So with that, Jeff, let's go ahead and jump back to you.
All right. At this point, yeah, like Jeremy said, flip over to the team by team section on your agent leaderboard. We'll start there. I kind of mentioned this before, but you can get the aggregates of some of this data at the team level, both in that by developer view. In the team view, we spend a little more time looking at team readiness and agent adoption as a whole. Overall, how is that team, its output score, speed, velocity, the number of releases, gives good visibility into that. And we'll go into one of these exemplary examples to start. So for all the repositories that the team members would contribute to, we'll aggregate those here. We'll do an analysis on, how ready, what is the state of that repo or that environment that your team is pushing code to. There are a variety of best practices that go into this assessment score. We're talking about like AI context, right? So some of these, if you're using Claude MD files, if you're using Copilot, is there an instructions file for Copilot? How are those things? Do they exist as one example? Are there CI/CD pipelines? Are there effective README files or code owners in place? These are really good examples of making the agent's life easier for when developers are using agents to interact with the repository. And you can see there's a couple missing here in this example. So for core platform, we're missing some branch protection rules, which can really help with people running Cloud Code in YOLO mode or accidental pushes and things like that. So you probably want to address this. You want to see if there's shared skills or commands that maybe some developers are using that might be helpful. Those are really helpful things to get access to. And if we can, let's look at maybe even some of the web team stuff. There's a little more examples here, but you can follow through and see, for the design system repo, it's missing some test config and some branch protection rules. You can go ahead and provide that opportunity to your team members and development groups and get these things addressed really easily. To touch on a quick note, you can get the same data visible across different boards. So you get that system metrics aggregated at the team level here as well. And if you are interested in, understanding where environments are as a whole, we have the by repository section. So we can leave that developer-centric view behind, and you can get some of the headline metrics around, your number of repos, the average score across all environments. And you can identify outliers, which repos are at risk that are maybe scoring really low in some of those gaps, and get the full sortable, actionable item list here for the repositories in your org. Each one, when expanded, I'll find one that's actually needs some help here. We'll go to the analytics API. You can see we're missing a bunch of the dev hygiene aspects and a bunch of the content quality things. So a nice little guide on things to add next to get to that next tier provides a great foundation for keeping your repositories ready for devs and agents to contribute to.
Yeah, that's
One comment that I'd like to
yeah.
one comment that I'd like to add here. We don't need to get A+ on all the repositories. So keep an eye on the repositories that have contributions, lots of contributions. This will be the number one priority to optimize, to get AI ready. Again, don't try to boil the ocean and do everything for everyone. And for me, this tool by repository, by team was giving very clear sequence of things that we need to improve, from what repositories to focus on, as well as what are the next items that we should be improving.
That's a good call out. Yep.
Right.
All right. Then we'll go back to you, Jeremy.
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next scenario here. But first, what's the one fast win? Think about it, kind of from your perspective, that you'd take back to your team. If you had that level of visibility, what kind of guardrails, making sure that your environments, your repositories are set up for agentic development. What's kind of one fast win that you think you would be able to take back to your team? And then again, kind of a take-home exercise here for you, being able to find strong behavior in terms of agentic development, but maybe weak environment, right? So finding those areas, open the worst looking repositories, see if you can find those and what specifically, are missing. And then trying to identify, looking through all the repositories and what they might need, like what are some fast wins for your own repositories, for your own code base that you might be able to implement. All right, next live poll. Let's go ahead and launch that now. So we would like to know, how many AI coding tools does your organization currently pay for? Now, in our research, we saw a number of different things. There was definitely an interesting split for sure in terms of also like the size of the organization, enterprise maybe versus startup. There was interesting splits there. I would say when we're out and about and talking with customers, by and large, most teams are trying or using multiple tools. So, and I think that's kind of definitely what we're seeing here. So, just one was the lowest. 4 or more was the highest. Oh, interesting. Okay, Jeff, Stacia, thoughts? What do you guys think?
I mean, it really depends, I guess, right? Like early stage, trying different tools, seeing which one, is more easy to use, which one provides better results. I think that's part of the story there is where you are, on your adoption journey with AI. And I think some teams, maybe even who are advanced and using tools a lot, have found that some tools are more effective or less effective at certain tasks than others. So I think it's going to be all over the place. And then there's some regulated industries even that have to standardize, right?
Yes.
You won't be limited by the number of tools you're able to use. So just going to
Yeah.
depend on a variety of factors. That's what I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, in our industry right now, everything is changing so fast. So just sticking to very few options, we may be missing some of the opportunities to learn and to get from the best. But also focusing just on one could be also a good strategy, because you are having this team learning on one tool, and you can bring the best from what are the instructions that are working the best from that tool. So I think there is no right or wrong answer. Just everything is changing so fast, and we need to be super curious, learning about what's going on. On our team, yeah, we are also using 4 and more, but through the data, primarily we are focusing on 2, Claude and Codex. So yeah, we arrived to this through the team learning, as well as through the data, what is giving the best outcomes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Great feedback. And conveniently enough, that actually tees up our next scenario. So we'll go ahead and dive into that right now. Um, so which tool is actually worth it? How do we know what tools are better for different types of work? So the scenario is this. Hey, renewal season is coming up for your tools. You're paying for Claude, Cursor, Codex seats across the organization, and finance comes knocking at the door and they say, hey, we need to wrangle in this budget a little bit, so we might have to cut one of these tools. We don't, as an engineering team, that does not sound good. We don't want to do that because we know we feel more productive. Now we're starting to get data that says we're being more productive. But how can we actually prove that these tools are working and which tools are working best for different types of work? So maybe one engineering team says they absolutely love Cursor and it's great, maybe for, let's just say front end work. And then another team, they don't want to give up Claude because it's amazing for the back end work. Those are just examples. So opinions are out there for sure, but the data is really what we need to be able to figure out which tool works best, or even combinations of tools. So that's what we're going to jump into. So things to look out for: look for the different cohorts of the different tools. So Claude, Cursor, Codex, and even the combinations. Look for the productivity for each tool, PRs per dev, per week, per tool, cycle time changes, the multi-tool effect. So being able to combine the tools together, and looking to be able to filter by teams or across departments or even by category of work that's happening. So Jeff, I'll pass it to you. Let's walk through it.
Yeah. Give me a second here. So yeah, for our tool data, you're going to be in the by tool and model, right? This is the last view in this particular section where we're talking about environments and the AI environments and some of the outcomes around them. In our examples here, as Stacia was kind of alluding to, we have a lot of devs on Claude Code, right? So we're in the All Tools tab. We can see that there's 26 devs that are primarily using Claude Code. This is weighted in terms of the frequency for each tool. We have a few who use Codex. We have a few who also use Cursor. And it depends. We have some overlap, and you can get that visibility as well. So we also highlight if there are devs that are using both, you can get the breakdown below that as at the same time. Each of those dimensions we talked about, right? The adoption score, the autonomy score. You can see if there's any variation or any difference in some of these tools, and they tend to be pretty close for our team, at least. In this case, it's due to the number of devs and the weighted average across each of those scores, and we can look at any variation in those outputs, those outcomes that we were talking about as well. So are there additional averages of PRs per dev per week weighted higher that, Claude Code seems to be winning primarily here? And which tool tends to have the best cycle time for your pull requests? I think I actually talked to a couple of devs, using one tool for code generation and the other for review. I know Codex maybe leans better on reviewing some of Claude Code's, can yield some interesting results. And highlight things that remove some of that bias that comes with, the agent context that you might get from running a review with the same tool against itself. And all of this can get broken down. So we talked about at the tool level, I can see, cycle time, medium time for each one and provide the trends on that data. I can see for the type of work, we looked at some of the detailed data before where we can categorize that by feature, enhancement, bug fix, chore, refactor. I can see at a glance, how each tool performs better or worse, right? Claude Code higher for feature work, but less so for bug work. And get the roll up of that data in a we'll call it the aggregate table, the productivity table. So you can see that breakdown by combination of tool and by tool across those same dimensions. One of the other aspects that's helpful is I can dig into the models. So for each tool, we have the metadata around the model, and you get those same dimensions on adoption and autonomy, right? Haiku is probably used a lot for some of the simple tasks like commit generation, summarization of changes, that kind of thing. But when it comes to doing work, you want to see Opus and 4.6. And I guess we had some Fable work for a little bit of time before it was shut down. But all of that's available. Really helps answer some of those questions that we're talking about at the team level for each tool, and also at the organization level if you remove those filters. I don't know. Stacia or Jeremy, anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, one question I had for Stacia was like, and maybe it's obvious, but like before you had this level of data, when you hear from your team, how do you know like which tool is better for, doing code review versus, bug fix versus new feature development? Was it just kind of gut feel? And then now this really helps, has the data to back it up?
Exactly. It was more of a gut feel. And the thing is that these models are constantly changing. So
Mhm.
that's why this gut feel is changing over time. And there could be some of the developers, oh, I feel that last week Claude is not doing good enough job. Like Opus 4.8 is terrible. Something happened. So yeah, we had more of this kind of sentiment. I would like to share a story about this view. We had a cohort of developers that were dissatisfied with use of AI. They told that I can't trust what it is building, and it's completely trash. It's terrible. And then we realized through specifically this view is that they were using an older Sonnet model
Mhm.
for this tasks that require lots of thinking, on the research side. And we're like, oh, that's interesting. It turned out that all of those developers, even though they were on different teams, they were in the same geolocation, and there was this default setting on Claude to fall back to this cheaper model. And yeah, we just discovered this through this tool. So it was amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, and just being able to obviously have the visibility, but know that you can actually help your developers improve their experience. That's a great
Yeah,
story.
it was
Awesome.
just a 2 days change just to communicate and make sure that people are switching. And then in a week, the sentiment about AI was completely different. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
I mean,
super
it's so
helpful.
true. I think all of us we know that these models do change and we feel that. We're all using them and you can feel when something slows down or something's not right. And so being able to highlight that and shine a spotlight on it and help the team get to a model that really works best for them, that's incredible. Okay,
Right.
cool. Let's go back to the slides. All right, so last scenario, but before we get to that, I'd love to know what's your current stack. I think Stacia shared a little bit about what her team is using and sort of what they're using those different tools for. Drop in the chat. Let us know what tools are you using. What's kind of your mix? Would love to hear and see what folks are using. Um, Try on your own sandbox again. Take home. Find the best cohorts of tools. Figure out the team mismatch where maybe a team tool mix doesn't match the productivity story, and even the budget finding. So that's one you can do on your own. And then, so last scenario, again, this is the kind of final one, and we're talking about the outcomes part of the framework here. And this is the ROI question. So obviously, one of the biggest things top of mind that we're really trying to get to. So it's the Monday before your quarterly review, your CFO, CEO, board emails you, hey, we've spent a lot in terms of dollars on these AI tools this year. What did we get? Uh-oh. That can be a inducing question, right? You don't want to just show up with kind of like the vibes of like, hey, our developers love these tools, which may very well be true. But you need a defensible number or set of numbers or metrics that you can build from data that you can observe, and you need ways to be able to say that in a few, those numbers to be able to say that in a few different ways. So that's what we're going to dive into for this last scenario. things to watch for. So kind of headline numbers, productivity change, additional hours per dev, additional dollars per week, as AI assisted changes. Look at the formulas, how we're kind of like pulling all of these things together. What's the opportunity call out? How do we close the gap and get even more ROI out of what our current baseline is? And even some of the CapEx, OpEx stuff. So Jeff, I will pause sharing there and we can jump back over to the demo.
All right. At this point, we're going to go into what we're calling business impact and ROI. We have two views here that really highlight what Jeremy was just mentioning. Those headline metrics that we talked about earlier. How much more effective are we being as an organization, as a team, with some of those outputs we have had in the past, right? One thing we have set up here is you can look at a period of time, a period of history that looks at those same outputs. For us, we chose January 26, maybe some point in time we're middle or early stage of AI adoption as an organization. It could be a year ago, 6 months ago, whatever it is. And we'll weight that and compare that against how things are now and compare those different data segments. So in this case, for this particular team, when we're looking at those outputs, the average number of changes overall per dev per week, we saw a 125% increase since a period of time where we were not using AI as intensely, as frequently as a whole. And it gives that visibility for, trend in productivity. Is it making us better or worse? That's a great question to ask, and we can get that here. There's also some aggregations and calculations on hours spent over a particular period of time. So, are we getting faster or slower? Is there more overall output compared with some of that heuristic flowing into additional cost or monies, dollars saved per week? So your devs times a certain hourly rate times a certain amount of time gives you that weekly spend on, are you seeing more or less comparatively to that first period? And then one big one, especially early on, that comes up is AI assisted code changes. We've been, working with AI for at least a few months as an organization. So a lot of the work that the engineers are doing are much, almost always assisted with AI, and we'll give you that breakdown and overview over time as well. So you get the roll up on those top tier numbers. We'll also give you that visibility into some of the velocity and quality gates that Stacia was talking about in chat, right? And I think this came up. Some of the speed of delivery, right? Cycle time as a whole and dimension as a whole. How does AI play a factor? Well, if we look at the aggregations based on those tiers, right? Power users, regular users, we can go down the line and see, are we seeing faster results, right? Cycle time is lower relative to some of these other cohorts of developers who are using AI less. Are we seeing additional output relative to developers who are not using AI? Those are going to be great validation for, that spend, that investment that your organization is making on the Cloud Code bill or the Copilot bill. And you can use this to help with, providing some of that data to your CFO or whoever needs to understand that particular aspect. Additionally, yeah, we might be shipping more, we might be releasing faster, but you want to pair that with the quality gate. So do we see more bugs from some of the power users? Yeah, they're shipping more code, and guess what? They're shipping more unstable code, and we're seeing more bugs being returned by that particular tier. Or no, we're still seeing sort of flat, or we're seeing actually an improvement in this, which is a really interesting note. And then you can get the final list of, spend. And we expect to see higher spend on the people using it more compared to those who are using it less. But you compare that with the cost per pull request, right? Are you seeing a huge drastic change on that spend as delivered for the number of PRs that get merged versus, the explorers who, are, they're costing less, but they're also shipping less. So this visibility is really helpful. We can get some of the opportunities to, unlock higher adoption or more productivity. AI provides some of those details. And like I said, you can at any point in time click in to drill in and view this data, and it bridges that gap between, what we're doing, what we're paying for, and what we're seeing as a result. That's one of my favorite views in this one. So I don't know, Stacia, if you have more you want to add to this view.
Yeah, this really changed my discussions with CFO and with the board being confidently able to report the numbers on the actual change, and we'll deep dive into how productivity is calculated in a second. But be able to talk about this change. This is one, but what is even more important, we are able to forecast what will be the changes that we are planning to have. So like for the next quarter, this is what we are planning to tackle as the further improvement in productivity. And this is not coming from the sky. It's really rooted into the workflows, into something that is already happening and exhibiting in your own organization. So if you look at this changes volume by dimension chart, so the idea is that we already have people who are exhibiting power user and regular user behavior. And if you bring and if you repeat this similar kind of behavior and learnings to the explorers and emerging, then this is additional 70% of the productivity that we could be onboarding. But this is also dynamic. Your power users and your regular users will keep learning and keep improving productivity as well. So there'll be constant this learning phase from your teams. There was a question about productivity that is calculated. Jeff, if you can click on the by developer.
Yeah.
And let's click on Nadia, output score. Output score.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, not click on it.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. So these are all the changes that are coming from a developer, and you can see that this is PR, this direct commits, but this is the work that have been reviewed by the developer, because right now this is a big contribution to the work that developers are doing, and we are looking at those PRs and commits that landed in the main that are merged, and with each one of them, if you go to the pull requests. Again, you can see that there is associated effort. This is heuristic that is derived from the changes themselves, based on the complexity of the changes and the work that have been done. We're associating an effort. This is demo data, so usually for your environment, you'll be having a reasoning why this is that level of effort. Then we are aggregating all the effort for the period of time for pull requests, for direct commits, and for reviewed PRs, and this is converting into the output score. You have flexibility to configure what will be the weights of, for example, direct commits. Usually this is a much lighter work than through pull requests. You'll be shipping bigger features. So you'll have that kind of control that you can define. Jeff, if you can close this this panel and just hover over on the output score for Nadia. Her output score. Her output score. Yeah. Yep. So here there'll be logic how it's being exactly calculated, and it's always normalized for the week level. So if you're picking up a longer period of time, you can see how it is trending over a period of time. So again, we are not talking about lines of codes. We are not talking about just a number of PRs. If this is like lightweight PRs, and if this is just, I don't know, some of the cleanup work, we call it chore, and you can define what exactly chore is. You can exclude it also from the output score as well.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tasha. Well, we got a couple minutes left. Yeah, if you got one more thing to show.
One last thing to call out that is really helpful is the CapEx OpEx, right? As part of that weighted assessment and what work is being done, you can look at capital versus operational expenses, report up to your CFO. I know this is one of Stasia's mentioned. This is one of our CFO's favorite views and loves to be able to come here and get this data at a glance. So just wanted to highlight that and note that for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. And I'll hand it back to you, Jeremy.
Okay, great. So let's just do a quick wrap up. So that was the presentation for today. What we went over was the framework, behavior, environment, outcome. So behavior, who's using AI, how deeply are they using it? Environment, are your repos ready for agentic development? And outcome, what's it all worth? So those are the layers that we covered with you today. Hopefully, you really got some good learnings out of that. As a takeaway here, so a couple things that you can absolutely go do. So if you want to try this on your own data with your own team, you can do a free trial of GitKraken Insights. So links are there. I believe they'll be dropped into the chat as well. And whoops, let me go back once. So you can go there, get a free trial, reach out to us, let us know. We'd love to get this hooked up for your team with your repository so you can see your real data. Also, if you would want to chat more with Stacia, with Jeff, with myself, with all three of us, you can book time with us right here. And we'd be happy to talk through this more for your specific, workflow and use case. So let's just maybe as a parting kind of like, commentary, if there's one thing that we could, leave folks with. So I'll ask Jeff, Stacia, kind of, if there's just kind of like one key takeaway. For me, it would be sort of what Jeff mentioned earlier is like, hey, this is a journey. If you're just getting started, don't feel like you're behind. There are many companies, many teams that are just getting started on this. So, but there's no greater time to start measuring, to start getting visibility into this than today. So, don't feel like you're behind, but absolutely get started with this today. Jeff, Stacia, what's kind of one key takeaway that you would leave folks with?
Yeah, I mean, I think to piggyback off of that, don't think you're going to get to where you need to be instantly. It's a journey. Like we even for us started out early with just a couple people kind of championing AI and moved through that workflow, kind of trickled out in the organization and tiny improvements over time are better than trying to, boil the ocean. We don't want to do that. So having this data, having this visibility has been really helpful to, get from point A to point B to point C rather than, trying to jump over everything.
Awesome. Stacia?
From me, it will be you can't improve what you're not measuring. And once we started looking into the real behavioral data in the real environment data and the output, this is when we start seeing really substantial changes in the productivity of the team. And we see this through the data. We see this through the teams that we are partnering. We're like it's really tremendous progress.
That's incredible. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Stacia, so much for your expertise today. And thank you all for joining us. We would love to see you on our next workshop. Thank you so much. Bye.